Ever since the release of the Mario movie, I've been thinking what a Zelda movie would be like. Every now and then I would ask this question, but quickly forget about it since a Zelda movie still seemed so out of the picture. The way I thought about it was, sure, they released the Mario movie, but the Zelda series is far more complicated and would be harder to implement into a movie. Well, it turns out my thoughts were completely wrong, because as I'm sure most of you know by now, the Legend of Zelda movie was recently confirmed. Now that we know the movie actually exists, we can talk about who the actors should be, what the movie should be like, and more. Throughout this video I will be talking about certain things we already know, as well as things I'm hoping for, but I'll try not to speculate too much. As of right now, we have barely any information, so trying to guess what they'll do within the movie is nearly impossible and not worth doing quite yet. To start, I do want to point out that the Zelda movie being live action is kinda weird. I do think that going for a cartoony style similar to what the Mario movie had would have also been a poor decision, but I don't see how a live action Zelda movie could even look. There's a trailer for an Ocarina of Time short film made by Ron Link, and honestly, this is much closer to what I would expect from a Zelda movie. I think it would make more sense in general if the Zelda series were made into an anime or TV show if they were going for something related to television rather than a movie, but that's not happening, so let's talk about the movie. Moving on to something we have literally no clue about, let's talk about what the story should be like. One of the most likely outcomes for the story is that the Zelda movie will focus on a completely new adventure with iterations of the Zelda and Link that we've never seen before, which isn't a terrible idea. This is essentially what they did for the Mario movie, and it turned out pretty well all things considered. The benefit to starting a completely new story is that if the movie turns out bad, it won't look bad on any particular game since it won't be based on anything. Although the downside to a completely new story is that I honestly feel like most Zelda fans wouldn't be coming in for a brand new story. There'll obviously be fan service regardless, but I feel like a lot of people want to see one of the pre-established Zelda stories being retold through a movie. At least that's what I want. A brand new story wouldn't be something worth getting upset over by any means, but I hope they do something based around a story that's already been explored. Speaking of, although it is unlikely, we might as well talk about what games they could base the movie around. To start, I don't think they would base a movie off of one of the 2D games, and I honestly don't think they should. 2D Zelda is cool in its own way, but I don't see how it would transition well to a live-action movie. With the 2D out of the way, it's time to begin talking about potential 3D Zeldas by limiting it to 4 options: Ocarina of Time, Tears of the Kingdom, Twilight Princess, and Wind Waker. Why, you might ask? Ganondorf. If the Zelda movie has a villain, which it obviously will, it should be the humanoid iteration of Ganondorf. Ganondorf is the quintessential Zelda villain, and it wouldn't make any sense if they did a movie without him. They would also have to forsake the fundamental idea of the Triforce if they got rid of Ganondorf, which wouldn't be a great idea. The Ganon incarnation of Ganondorf could also be used from many of the games, but he isn't as recognizable as the humanoid version, which is why I think it would be a better idea to have this version of Ganondorf as a villain. Demise is also a pretty interesting villain, but I still think Ganondorf would make more sense for the Zelda movie. So, with these 4 options, which one would make the best movie? Well, I'm gonna start by saying that The Wind Waker isn't a great candidate for a Zelda movie. Wind Waker is a great game with a surprisingly good story, but the cartoony art style of Wind Waker just wouldn't be able to transition well to live action. Tears of the Kingdom, in spite of how much I love that game, also wouldn't be able to fit very well into a movie for even more reasons than The Wind Waker. The first reason is that Tears of the Kingdom is a sequel to Breath of the Wild, and doing a movie based on a sequel wouldn't be a great idea in the first place. The second and more important reason Tears of the Kingdom doesn't work for a movie is that Link doesn't have a companion in Tears of the Kingdom. A companion is probably one of the most necessary things in order to make a Zelda movie work. Without a companion, Link would have nobody to talk to, and the movie would be a little awkward if Link was just talking to himself the entire time. Assuming that they would even make Link talk, this wouldn't be an issue in settlements or various towns since Link could talk to other people, but this would be a very big issue in areas like dungeons that nobody except Link would be able to access. I guess you could connect the sages to companions, but that's really stupid, so we're not gonna do that. That leaves Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time as my favorite candidates for a Zelda film, so which one is better for a movie? Well, let's start by talking about Twilight Princess. The biggest benefit to Twilight Princess is that Midna would make the most sense for a companion. Midna might not be the most helpful in game, but she certainly has more personality than the likes of Navi. But honestly, although Midna is a good companion, I think that Ezlo would be the best option for a companion in a Zelda movie, but we all unfortunately know they won't draw inspiration from the Minish Cap. While Midna would make a great companion in a movie, I do have to say that I think Twilight Princess still makes less sense overall for a film. Yes, Twilight Princess is an amazing game, but the game's tone is honestly too consistently dark for a Zelda movie. I won't deny that Ocarina of Time is also very dark, but there are still a lot more bright and cheerful moments in Ocarina of Time when you compare it to Twilight Princess. You can't even complete a dungeon in Twilight Princess without some ominous and dreary music playing in the background. Also, Twilight Princess is just too long. Both Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess are pretty long games, but Ocarina of Time on average takes 25 hours, while Twilight Princess on average takes 36 hours. My last reason, and not least, is that, let's be real, I do not want to see a live-action version of Telma. In fact, Twilight Princess probably has the most unappealing character designs in all of Zelda in general. So many of the characters in Twilight Princess look genuinely disturbing and not in a way that improves the viewing experience, more so they just look bad. You look at Okaka and think, wow, that thing looks ugly, and then you see fire and you say, Okaka's not that bad actually. So yes, I think Ocarina of Time would be the best game for a Zelda movie, and there are many reasons for that. The biggest reason is that I think the story for Ocarina of Time still holds up as the most well-told story in the Zelda series. The story isn't just about defeating the bad guy and saving the world, but it's also about growing up in general. Link is told from a young age that he has to save the world, and from that point on he doesn't get time off. He's constantly on a quest to save the world before it's too late, and when he finally defeats the bad guy, he gets sent back to when he was a child to live a normal life, once and for all. It's probably my favorite story told in a video game, period, which is one of the reasons I would love to see it in a movie. Ocarina of Time is also the first game to properly introduce Ganondorf as well as the Triforce, which is why it would make perfect sense for a Nintendo movie. Ocarina of Time thematically also just works. Every part of the world feels unique and charming, from Gerudo Valley to Kakariko Village to Zora's Domain to this random guy's house. The dungeons in particular are some of the most interesting and unique dungeons in Zelda history. Imagine watching Link go into the Forest Temple for the first time as the ominous music sets in the background, or watching Link explore the brilliant Water Temple. Okay, maybe the Water Temple might not be great to watch. Ocarina of Time is filled with a great atmosphere and good storytelling, yet I think it would transition to a film pretty well. We've already seen what a live action like Ocarina of Time can look like, and it makes sense. Companions are also covered, since Navi helps Link throughout the game from the start, and as we all know, Navi likes to talk a lot. At the end of the day, I think Ocarina of Time would make the most sense for a Zelda movie. Obviously, Link's crossbow training would be the best, but Nintendo hates their fans too much to deliver a movie based on that amazing game. Before we start talking about what the cast should be like, we're pretty much at 1,000 subscribers. I mean, seriously, we're like 99% of the way there, so please subscribe so we can get that one last push. Anyway, since the Zelda movie is going to be live action, the cast for the movie actually matters more than ever. For the Mario movie, the cast being something out of an SNL skit didn't actually matter since they were just voice acting. Zelda, on the other hand, is going to be live action, which means we're actually going to see the actors. One of the funniest things to come out of this announcement is this trend on Twitter. In case you don't understand, literally every Zelda fan is begging Nintendo on their knees not to cast Tom Holland as Link, and I get it. There's been no confirmation that he's even been offered the role, but the risk is simply too high for people not to warn Nintendo. This makes complete sense, but I would go even further than this and ask Nintendo, please, don't hire anybody from the United Kingdom. As for who could actually play any of these roles, I don't really know. As long as the voice acting for Ganondorf is fine, it doesn't matter since he's certainly going to be CGI, but the other characters are one big question mark. Perhaps they could hire The Rock? Get him to play Darunia or something? Maybe get Danny DeVito to play Tingle? I don't know. I really can't think of any big actors who would fit any of the roles for Zelda characters, and we're just gonna have to hope that Nintendo can find the perfect actors for the job. At the end of the day, if there's anything I want from a Zelda movie, it's that I want it to be good. As simple as that sounds, video game movies are almost always terrible, and although the Mario movie was really good, it had a lot more freedom since it was an animated movie. We probably won't be seeing the Zelda film in at least a few years, so they'll have plenty of time to make something worthwhile. I'm obviously just worried because it's live action, which is pretty questionable, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. If I have any request, it's just, please, Nintendo, don't hire Tom Holland.